Hello, this is Artemis_anime, and today I am reading Chapter 17, The Answers We Seek, of Viridian by Silver Mist Anime Lover. I hope you enjoy. Izuku paced in the little camper he called home. Kaigo was eyeing him. The winged hero was still smattered here and there with bandages from his release from the hospital the day before. Most importantly, today was Saturday, the day of the meeting where he'd reveal himself as a time-traveling 44-year-old man who also happened to be their 15-year-old student and the vigilante-turned-hero the world seemed to have their eye on. He was understandably a little nervous. They'd either believe him and help out, or he'd be wishing he could undo whatever he was about to do when they laughed him out of the room and called the Happy Farm. He clenched his necklace. Relax, Zukan. I'm here with you. Besides, you're bringing along more than the necklace. Kaigo placed a hand on his shoulder. No need to place a hole in this place. It's barely holding together as is. Hey! My house is perfectly... He paused a moment to stamp the panel back onto the wall where it popped out. Stable, thank you. Kaigo gave him a flat look. Okay, so it's a work in progress, but it's livable. Livable and safe are two very different things, my bro. It hasn't given me tetanus yet. The yet shouldn't even be there, Kaigo groaned. I swear, if you don't move in with me, I'm going to tell UA today and make them build a dorm system. Mom, no! Mom, yes, Kaigo crossed his arm. But UA will take away my sake, Izuku cried. You still have that? No alcohol until you're legal. I am legal, Izuku stuck out his tongue. Not in this timeline, you're not. Fine, whatever, Izuku huffed, making a mental note to hide several alcohol bottles in various locations around town, and UA so Kaigo didn't take them away. Don't stress, if they don't believe you, we still have got Hanabi, Kaigo reminded him. Hanabi was an acquaintance of Kaigo that owed him a favor. She had the most curious quirk, memory lane. She could pull other people into someone's memory and make them all relive it in third person, as spectators. Izuku was itching to analyze it, especially since it worked in spite of memory-altering quirks. She was a mental specialist who often worked with the police. Her quirk would work accurately even on someone who'd been memory-altered or had their memory suppressed. He wanted to know the specifics, but he'd yet to meet the girl in question. He hoped he wouldn't have to. That was an absolute last-ditch option. He didn't want to traumatize everyone after all, or re-traumatize them, whatever. Either way, the issue was how to go about this. Aizawa likely already suspected him of at least knowing Viridian, if not pulling the same conclusion as Todoroki about him being related to himself. And he was right. Kaigo laughed his ass off when Izuku told him about Todoroki's accusation. He looked down when his phone buzzed. Call him paranoid, but he slipped a tracker into Aizawa's, Tsukuchi's, and Kaigo's hero phones, or work phones in Tsukuchi's cases, something that they took with them everywhere. That way, no matter what, he could find them if they got into trouble. And Aizawa was on the move, but he was headed away from UA. Izuku's brows furrowed. That wasn't right. Where was he?
That's Zama. Viridian, I was going to ask you to pick Midori up, but I'll do it myself. I want to give him a home check. I know you said he's safe at home, but I need to make sure. I think we already established that you don't always recognize quirkless discrimination as such.
Oh, shit! Kaigo? He looked at his brother. How fast do you think we could fly to my mother's house? I'd say about 10 minutes or less. Why? Kaigo shot him a suspicious look. Izuku showed him the phone. Because Aizawa's en route to what he thinks is my house. And Inko really doesn't want to see me, I'm sure. Crap! Hold on, Zukan. Kaigo shook his wings as they ran outside. Izuku made sure to grab his things. Well, that's one cat out of the bag. Shota didn't know what he was expecting when he knocked on the door of the Midoriya residence. The woman that stood before him bore a striking resemblance to his problem child. She had a thin physique with long green hair and shimmering green eyes. Hello? She tilted her head, confused. Hi, I am Aizawa Shota, your son's homeroom teacher, he answered, but the woman looked even more confused. My son? There was a flash of... Was that confusion in her eyes? Had Midoriya not informed her of his attendance at UA? He really hoped he hadn't just fucked up and made a possible abusive situation worse. Shota was about to say something when footsteps echoed through the concrete stairs leading up to the apartment. He turned to see his problem child panting lightly. The kid stopped when he saw his mother in the doorway. Inko? Midoriya started. The woman looked at him for a moment, as if she didn't recognize him. Oh, Zuko. I'm sorry, you haven't been home much lately. Goodness, I never even asked which high school you got into. She smiled softly at him, but something was definitely wrong here. Midoriya snorted. I got into UA's hero course. Come now, don't lie, especially in front of a guest. We both know about your condition. Condition? Does she mean his quirklessness? Shota felt anger spark up within him. My name is Aizawa Shota, a teacher at UA. Your son is my student. I teach 1A heroics. He stepped up, noting with a small amount of satisfaction as the woman jolted at the information. 1A UA's? But he's quirkless. Heroics is far too dangerous for someone like him, she protested. Something about her tone made it seem forced, like her worry wasn't genuine. Don't even pretend to care, Midoriya shook his head. You're a terrible mother, you know that? Shota jolted at the steel in his student's voice. The woman apparently hadn't expected it either. Listen here, Izuku, I am your mother, and you will not disrespect me that way. What kind of mother doesn't even notice that her son's been gone for over a year? Midoriya spat, glaring. There was a disappointment coloring his tone. I mean, I knew you didn't care, but this is a new low. I thought you'd at least notice. Shota's head spun with this new information. He was looking at a case of severe neglect, and had Midoriya run away? Where was he staying? And why hadn't Viridian told them? Midoriya Inko eyed Shota nervously for a moment. Don't lie, I made your favorite just last night for dinner. Oh? Did you now? Do you even remember what my favorite meal is? Of course, I do. I am your mother. It's katsudon. It hasn't been katsudon since I was 7. Midoriya sighed. Look, just don't. Don't even bother anymore. Not that you did to begin with. The boy gave his mother the most exhausted look Shota's ever seen on a child's face. It was weary and filled with a sense of resignation. You know, I think some part of me still held out hope that maybe you did care about a quirkless kid like me, but it looks like I was wrong. Again. Shota could sense the finality in his student's tone, and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. He looked back at the woman in the doorframe as he guided his student away. She looked like she'd been slapped, but there was something in her eyes. Maybe something else was at play here. Either way, he was going to file a case against her with Tsukuuchi for child neglect. But for now, he had some more pressing matters. Once they were away from the complex, he looked at his student. You ran away. Around the beginning of my 3rd year of middle school. And you're staying... The kid sighed. I guess there's no way around it, is there? Dogma Beach Park. Shota stopped short. The dump? Even Viridian should have known that was wrong, quirkless or not. So, why? Why hadn't he told them? Unless Viridian really was Midoriya's father. In that case, were they both living at the dump? I'll have you know that you can salvage a lot in that place, his problem child huffed. But wait, hadn't Hawks said he'd spent time at Midoriya's place? If you're wondering about Hawks, I've asked him not to tell anyone. I have my reasons, okay? I've got some powerful enemies after me, and I can't put him in danger by staying with me. More powerful than the League of Villains? Midoriya snorted. I'm sure it'll make sense after this meeting. The meeting. Shota would be lying if he said he wasn't beyond curious. Even Principal Nezu hadn't been able to figure out the mystery that was the problem child walking behind him, which was moderately terrifying. He wondered just how much of a headache he'd have by the end of this. They rode the early morning train in silence. Midoriya was staring into his phone, but he hadn't scrolled for several minutes. The kid was understandably nervous and likely shaken from the earlier encounter with his mother. Listen, Midoriya. He spoke up softly, and those bright green eyes turned to him. No matter what happens at this meeting, know that I'm in your corner, okay? I'll be here for you. If you believe me, Shota would never admit it out loud, but the lack of this kid's faith in him hurt. I will believe you, I promise. He found himself locked into a staring contest. He felt exposed, like Midoriya was judging his soul and determining its worth. It was unnerving, to say the least. I really hope you do, Sho. His eyes were somewhat glassy and focused, but not quite in a flashback sort of way. It was as if he was remembering something. Shota was so caught up in the mystery that was his student that he nearly missed their stop. This is us, problem child. He gently ruffled the kid's hair, earning a surprised smile from the boy. Midoriya quickly followed after him as they entered UA, heading straight for Nezu's office. Midoriya stopped him right outside of the principal's door. Sensei, I need to use the restroom. I'll be right back. Shota almost stopped him, but remembered how defeated the kid had looked after speaking to his mother. He probably needed a little bit of time to process that before delving into his trauma. He sighed. Fine, but make it quick. He entered the office alone. The principal was already there, enjoying a cup of tea with Tsukuchi and Hawks, though Viridian was nowhere to be seen. He twitched. Damn it, why was that man always late? Midoriya will be joining us shortly. He's using the restroom first, Shota explained before anyone could ask. Hawks chuckled lightly to himself, but Shota didn't get the chance to ask him about it as Viridian walked in. Hi, V, Hawks greeted casually. Can I go? Viridian grinned as he came over and clasped hands with the hero. Well, it looked more like those two were on friendly terms. They'd probably met on patrol or something. The two did seem to have similar personalities, and if Viridian was related to Midoriya, then it would stand to reason those two would be close. Ah, Viridian, I presume. Nezu smiled. Would you like some tea? Principal Nezu, Viridian greeted, and President Mike. Yes, I'd love a cup of tea, thank you. Ah, good. The principal handed Viridian a cup. We're just waiting on Midoriya now. Hawks chuckled lowly, but masked it as a cough. Viridian sent him a glare. Before we start, I have something I'd need to tell you. Midoriya will still be a little bit, Viridian said. Had he spoken to the kid beforehand? If Viridian had something to say and he didn't want the kid to know, then it'd stand to reason that he'd have the kid make up some kind of excuse to leave. As a teacher, Shota heard the restroom excuse more times than should be legal. Oh? Nezu tilted his head. I promise that's related to our reason for being here today. What, have we finally graduated to a tragic backstory or something? Shota rolled his eyes. He normally wasn't one to joke, but Viridian had a similar sense of humor. He supposed it was okay to joke with his friend. Actually, yes. Tsukuchi choked on his coffee as Viridian calmly took a sip of tea, pulling his mask down before speaking again. Your origins relate to Midoriya's trauma in what way? Nezu narrowed his gaze, suspicious. In every way, Viridian answered. But my story is unbelievable. I know it's gonna sound insane, but I need you to trust me. There is something in his eyes, a desperation, a sort of soul-crushing agony that drove men to madness. A loneliness that was so sharp and a grief so strong that Shota's heart hurt just seeing it in his friend's eyes. You're a friend, Viridian, Tsukuchi spoke up. We trust you. Of course we'll believe you. Shota nodded in agreement. Nezu and Hisashi stayed quiet, but he could sense their curiosity. You already know my answer, Hawk smirked. So, here's the thing. I'm actually from the future. There was a pause. Surely he must be joking, right? Viridian did that a lot, but there was a look in his eyes, and the shock was painted all over Tsukuchi's face that told him he was telling the truth. Viridian pulled out a carefully bound stack of papers. They looked old, and handed them to Nezu. These are the blueprints for Project Hope, a time machine I built along Aizawa Shota, my good friend. Shota jolted at the sound of his name. Me? Yeah, you. Well, future you. He sighed deeply. The plan was for Sho and I to jump back together, but he died protecting me, died to send me back. Hisashi's hand took his, and Shota looked at Viridian in a whole new light. This man had once been his friend, and he died to send him to the past. But why? Why was that necessary? I'm afraid I'm still missing some information, Nezu noted as he flipped through the pages. This certainly is feasible given the materials and calculations, but I fail to see this why this was necessary. There was a sort of sharpness to the principal's gaze. Altering time for the wrong reasons is technically illegal, though it's never been done on this sort of scale before. 10 years? 38, actually, Viridian admitted. The room jolted. Even the handful of time-related quirks that have popped up over the years, nothing of this scale has ever been. Tsukuchi trailed off, blinking owlishly at the vigilante. If it's illegal, then you can arrest me after I kill Shigaraki Tomura, but I have to prevent the future that I come from. His fist tightened. Is this personal, or is the greater population at risk? Depending on the situation, it may be legal, Tsukuchi spoke up. Shigaraki Tomura will bring an end to the world as we know it. Cities razed to the ground, billions, perhaps more, dead. I've seen so many horrible things. The apocalypse? Hisashi choked. Yeah, Brady nodded. I've already changed up a few things, but until he dies, the future is still there. Until I can kill him and prevent him from receiving One for All, that future will remain. One for All, the name of a shadow villain who ruled the underworld. If the rumors Shota heard about him were correct, he was the villain equivalent of All Might, a truly terrifying prospect. One for All? Tsukuchi blinked before his gaze narrowed. So he is alive. Yes, but the real threat is his protege, Shigaraki Tomura. He may seem like a childish gamer, and he is right now, but he's frighteningly intelligent. Viridian shuddered hard. He created these Nomu that have special attributes, things like speed, strength, flight. They eventually grew into their own species and gained an animalistic sentience. They'd attack any humans they came across. I can count on one hand how many survivor groups I came across, even after he winced. So let me get this straight. Tsukuchi took a deep, calming breath. Shota knew the feeling. This was a lot of information. You've come from 30-something years in the future to kill a man who will one day destroy the world, causing the deaths of countless people. He paused. Do I have that right? Yep, pretty much, Viridian nodded. I know it's unbelievable, but I've got proof. Shota blinked at that. Proof would be nice, because right now it sounded like some kind of fucked up fairy tale. Sho gave it to me, said it'd convince you. Viridian lifted his mask up a bit and reached down into his shirt, enough to pull up a necklace. It actually looked a lot like Midoriya's. Nezu's eyes widened as something clicked into place, and Shota was somewhat terrified, because he'd never seen Nezu look shocked before. I see! Nezu chuckled into himself for a moment before dissolving into full on cackles. Aw, you took my fun away, Viridian pouted. Relax, Viri. Everyone's still confused. Hawks chuckled. So the winged hero had already known all this. He felt a little miffed that this other hero was trusted before himself and Tsukuchi. He ignored Nezu, who was starting to calm down as he took the pro-offered gift. It was only then that he saw what sat on the other end of the chain. His hand went to his own necklace, hidden beneath his shirt. 2 rings sat together, one deep purple stone and the other a shining green one. Forever in Harmony was engraved alongside the inside, Celtic-like knots intertwined with one another around the inside of the band. The one with the purple stone looked encrusted with dried blood, and it looked a little worse for wear when compared with the other one. Neither looked like have been cleaned in a long time. Hisashi gasped beside them. That's our wedding bands. They raised their gazes to Viridian. That's right, he smiled softly. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you back then, but I swear I'll protect you now. Shota reluctantly handed the rings back to the vigilante-turned-hero, who took them gently with a soft look. He rubbed his thumb alongside Hisashi's with a forlorn gaze. Hasn't Midoriya been taking a while? Tsukuchi spoke up suddenly. I mean, I know this was a lot of information, very important information, mind you, but weren't we originally here for the kid? Oh yeah, that was right. But now something new started to slide into his mind. Midoriya called them Zashi and Sho when he was far more skilled in combat than normal. He took down a Nomu without a second glance and mentioned them during the battle trials before he'd even seen one at the USJ. Midoriya had previous encounters with the Nomu, but refused to tell them when or where. He didn't socialize well with his peers, though that was slowly changing between Hatsume and Shinso, and was always on edge. He had severe PTSD and seemed to be after Shigaraki Tomura. The puzzle pieces had been there all along, but he'd never thought to put them together like this before. His eyes widened as Viridian reached for his mask. Oh yeah, about that. He slipped off the mask, and at first, Shota couldn't process what he was seeing. Fluffy green hair and bright green eyes framed by a familiar smattering of freckles. The scar from Shigaraki was what cemented it as a reality. With a shuddering breath, Shota clicked the final puzzle piece into place. Midoriya Izuku smirked. I fixed the W key. And that was Chapter 17, The Answers We Seek of Viridian by Silver Mist Anime Lover. Thank you for listening. Please leave a comment down below, and I hope you enjoyed. Bye!